Now, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hold down the Option, Alt on the PC, and click on Radius. And now you can see the radius in a little bit more visual detail. If I increase this up, you can really see the radius going on in here. And now you understand why we want to reduce this. So I'm going to take her down to about maybe 0.7. And then when it comes to detail, again, we're getting into that embossed look so we can actually see what's going on. Don't forget, we're working with a grayscale thing. And I also want to let you know that when you're looking at this image, the areas that you see that are lighter, they actually lighten in the image. And areas that are darker than a middle gray will darken in the image. So we can really increase the detail and you can really see all that nitty-gritty detail, and I'm not 100% sure I like that, so I may just leave it at the default 25. Masking is a beautiful thing. I don't know if you know anything about masking in Photoshop, but if you have a layer mask in Photoshop, generally it will default to white. So when you create an adjustment layer in Photoshop, you make an adjustment, you have a white layer mask. A white layer mask means that everything in that window or on that layer is going to be displayed. That adjustment in its full glory is going to be shown. If you have a black layer mask will hide everything. So here's the rule. White reveals, black conceals. In between white and black, we obviously have shades of gray. Depending on the darkness or lightness of that level of gray, will have varying amounts of transparency. So if I was to hold down the Option key and click on the masking guy here at 0, it's a white layer mask. Everything is being applied. Everything from the amount, the radius, and the detail is showing up in our image. That's quite obvious right here. If I hold this down and start to drag this to the right, we can start to introduce some black and levels of gray. The levels of gray is semi-transparent. The black is blocking out. So if you notice in the sky, in the upper left-hand corner, majority of the sky is not going to have any of the artifacts from the detail or the amount slider show up. As I drag this more and more over here, you can see less and less of the sky is going to be affected. Also, the fender has gotten quite dark, except for the extreme edges where they're, extreme edges, contrast, all that fun stuff. I can bring this all the way up to here. And the more I drag this up, the more I'm going to eliminate areas from being sharpened. If you take a look at this here, we can see that this part is quite smooth, but just to the darker areas, it's looking a little crunchy. Not 100% sure or convinced that that's the right way to go, but who knows? This might be a little bit better. If I was to take that all the way down, we can see we have that detail going through the whole area there. Now, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I need to bring this up to 100% and block most of the sharpening from happening in there. But if I'm doing that, I'm probably blocking a lot from in there as well. And yeah, you can see that there's nothing going on. The only places that's actually getting sharpened right now is where you see white. And I think that's a little bit extreme. So I may come down here and go to maybe 30% and leave it at that. And then I will come back into here and I'll reduce this down to something a little more manageable. Something along those lines. Now if I come over here and click on this, we can see where there is some detail. And that's how I would translate this at this point in time. We've still got some detail going on here, but it's not that horrible crunchy stuff. This flat plate that has a little bit of texture in it still has a little bit of texture in it. So does the fender in there. That is sharpening. I hope that makes some sense to you. This is the amount, and we can crank her up or turn her down. What would determine whether or not it gets cranked up or turned down? The sharpness of the lens you're using, and in combination, the sensor that you are using in your camera. After a while, you'll be able to determine which lenses require what amount of default sharpening. Some lenses are inherently softer than others. Maybe you'll find that at certain f-stops, you'll have to go more or less. This is just trial and error, so I strongly recommend that you keep notes of how you're sharpening for each of your lenses. And then once you've gone to that point, you might want to start saying, okay, I'm noticing that a lot of my images shot with a particular lens at a particular f-stop are softer than other things, and maybe you'll want to increase the amount of sharpening, increase the radius, crank up the detail, and play with the masking. There you go. Thank you very much.